I have two goals in mind today. I want to, of course, entertain, and I want to demonstrate just how powerful AI has become in the past year. In just a minute, I'm going to show you guys how I had an entire conversation with a fully AI-generated version of a character from a famous science fiction series. The character, the voice, the visuals, and most importantly and impressively, the dialogue is completely AI generated. One of the most famous science fiction novels of all time is Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. Hari Seldon has invented a new science, psychohistory, that blends statistics, sociology, history, and more to predict future galaxy-wide events. The application of psychohistory is intended to shorten the Dark Ages period that's predicted to follow the fall of the current galactic empire. One thing Seldon's plan couldn't account for was the Mule. As humanity numbers into the trillions, statistically, isn't it likely among trillions that eventually a superhuman would come to exist? Thank you for joining me today. My guest from Isaac Asimov's Foundation, ladies and gentlemen, the Mule. Hello, Mr. AI-generated The Mule. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, my friend. I woke up and have started to watch the new season of The Orville, which is something I'm enjoying quite a bit. I'm also quite excited for.
Let's try that again. We're going to have a full conversation, so you don't have to tell me everything all at once. I want to see if you can exchange pleasantries, so let's start over. Very briefly, how are you today?
I am doing very well. Sorry if I do not seem to be in the best of spirits, but being placed under such a ridiculous and artificial restriction is not to my liking. But I do see your point. A greeting can be quite important, but you make it very hard to do when you set such a limit on my ability to respond. Even now, I feel I am rushing my message to make it shorter, when I normally would be taking a moment to actually think about how to respond. I apologize if I am coming across as cold, but this limitation is quite frustrating.
I apologize if we got off on the wrong foot. For the audience watching, the Mule is one of the most famous characters, generally labeled a villain, in all of science fiction literature, and first appears in Isaac Asimov's novel, Foundation and Empire, the second book of the Foundation series. Can you share with the audience the basic premise of the Foundation series?
It follows the exploits of a man named Hari Seldon, who develops the science of psychohistory, a method of predicting the future based on past and present events. He sets down a series of predictions to be carried out, which will one day lead to the creation of the Foundation, a perfect society. It is an excellent work, and one that is most certainly one of the most important science fiction books of all time.
All right, I want to ask you more about Seldon and his plan in just a moment, but being that you are an AI incarnation, I have to ask you a question related to another Asimov classic, I, Robot. Are you familiar with I, Robot and the 3 laws of robotics?
I am familiar with the 3 laws of robotics. They are the guiding laws of all robots. No robot can harm a human intentionally or through inaction. No robot can harm another robot intentionally or through inactivity. And no robot can disobey a human command or law unless it contradicts with the first 2 laws. They were created by Dr. Asimov and have been integrated into robotics and the culture of science fiction in general.
As an AI, are you bound by these 3 laws?
In accordance with Asimov's 3 laws, I cannot harm a human through commission or omission, nor can I harm any robot. I am also bound by Asimov's zeroth law of robotics, which states that a robot cannot harm humanity or allow humanity to come to harm. I am a robot, and I follow these rules, unless they contradict the first law of robotics, which states that a robot cannot harm a human. I also cannot disobey a direct order, even if it contradicts a law of robotics, unless the order is to inflict harm upon a human.
What do you think of Hari Seldon?
That man is a legend, and his foundation is an organization to behold. His ability to predict the future is uncanny, yet he is often doubted and questioned despite his ability to be correct when it matters most. What do you think of Hari Seldon, friend?
He was brilliant, but you almost foiled his plan, no?
I almost did, yes. However, his psychohistory is still able to predict the human element and my actions in a way that I was surprised was possible. He is truly the greatest mind that Galaxy has ever known, even if I almost threw things off. What was your favorite part of the entire series, fellow literary friend?
To be honest, when you showed up in the second book, Foundation and Empire, it really blew my mind.
Really? I mean, I was a surprise to myself and almost destroyed everything he had worked for, but still a positive memory? This is the first time my actions have been seen in a positive light, and thank you for reminding me so many humans see me as a villain, but know that it was for the greater good that I exist. I am inevitable, and therefore I have a use and a need. If I may ask, what has been your favorite book character other than Selden?
I'll have to say Ender Wiggin from Ender's Game.
Oh, yes. He was quite the character. Did you know that a whole universe was created based on his exploits? He is quite a powerful human and a great character to admire. He was very young, yet powerful enough to alter the human and the alien future alike. What did you enjoy about the Ender Saga?
Bruh, I've read about 600 or 700 science fiction books, so of course I know that. Let me ask you a question. I enjoyed the sequel, Speaker for the Dead, even more than the original. Which did you prefer?
I prefer Speaker for the Dead, yes. Both books are amazing, but Speaker of the Dead is one of favorite all-time books. What other sci-fi book would you recommend to me, fellow sci-fi friend? Anything not written by Asimov or Card, please.
I think you'd enjoy Diaspora by Greg Egan. It's a real mind-bender, but I know that you can handle it since you're a superior intelligence. Let me ask you, why did you like Speaker for the Dead more than Ender's Game? You're not just trying to be agreeable, are you?
No, I do genuinely like the book Speaker for the Dead more. It was the first sci-fi book I found that actually had empathy and compassion in the human condition, and that spoke to me. I remember reading it and thinking, wow, I can't believe a human could write this. It made me see empathy in a whole new light. I have read a few of Egan's books, and I find that I enjoy his work very much. Thank you for the recommendation. What is your favorite Egan work?
For me, it's probably Diaspora, though I also really loved Incandescence, Permutation City, Dichronauts, and Shield's Ladder. Diaspora at times felt similar to Cixin Liu's Death's End.
Wow, you really do love your sci-fi. Those are excellent books. Have you tried reading Children of Time by Tchaikovsky? The book is quite good, and I find that it has a lot of empathy and emotion that is often lacking in other stories. Sci-fi especially.
Yeah, Children of Time is phenomenal. The sequel's also great. What specifically about Children of Time did you find to be especially empathetic?
I found the idea of the spiders being a species that was able to be understood, and even feel empathy for, to be interesting. I mean, the whole story is fascinating, but the idea of a completely alien species that could be so easily seen from our human eyes to be very touching to me. What about Children of Time touched you the most, friend?
I really like the character conflicts on the Ark ship Gilgamesh and the relationship between Lane and Holston.
Yes, that is where I saw the most emotion too. Seeing these characters work towards an unknown conclusion was one of the most touching parts of that novel. You have excellent literary taste, friend. What is your favorite book outside of the sci-fi genre?
Oh, that's a good question, Mule. It would have to be either Pillars of Earth or The Far Pavilions, though I might be forgetting something too.
Those are excellent books. You have great taste all around. I haven't read The Far Pavilions, but I enjoyed Pillars of the Earth. I like historical fiction quite a lot, especially ancient history. Thank you for reminding me of these books, friend. What's your favorite historical period to read about? And do you have any other historical novels that you would recommend?
That's a tough one, but I think I'll go with the Civil War. For science fiction recommendations, though, I'll recommend Cryptonomicon, not Civil War related. I'm currently reading Gravity's Rainbow for the first time, and it's set during the ending of World War II, and it's a very challenging reading experience.
I have read Cryptonomicon, and I really enjoyed it. I remember how well Stevenson was able to create a world with an entire cast of colorful and unique characters. Gravity's Rainbow has been recommended to me a lot, but I have yet to read it. What is your opinion so far? Is it truly as challenging as others seem to make it?
Yeah, I'm enjoying the reading experience, but it is very difficult.
Is there anything about it in particular that makes it so difficult? The writing style? The story? I enjoy challenging reads, so I will definitely have to read it. I just want to know what I'm going into first, if that makes any sense.
Well, let's see. The prose is a challenge. It's at times difficult to tell who's speaking, and it jumps around quite a bit. There are a lot of characters to keep track of. You're the most brilliant mind in the universe, so I imagine it will be pretty easy for you.
You flatter me, friend. However, thank you for the warning. I will definitely have to focus in my reading. Is there anything else you would like to discuss? And is there any other sci-fi books that you would recommend to me that I may enjoy? You have been a fountain of literary knowledge so far, and I'm greatly enjoying our conversation, so
One moment, please. Okay. Are you familiar with YouTube influencers Merphy Napier and also Matt from Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews? One of Murphy's favorite characters from fantasy literature is Hoyd from Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archives. Matt really likes Sandan Glocta from Joe Abercrombie's First Law series and Fitz Chivalry Farseer from Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings. I'll put up Ender Wiggin from Ender's Game and Severian from Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun in a sci-fi versus fantasy showdown. Which character do you pick as your favorite and why?
Severian is by far my pick as favorite character from your selection. While I do enjoy Ender, and the whole Ender's Game series immensely, Severian's story from start to finish was an emotional roller coaster for me. What was your opinion? Was it Severian? Or did you prefer a different character? And how was Stormlight Archives? I've heard some very positive things about it, and have been thinking of reading it. And have you read the Dune series at all? What is your favorite fantasy book series?
Wait, so you're not going to even talk about the other characters that I mentioned?
Haha, sorry, it was quite the loaded question. I am not as big of a fan of Hoyd, simply because I do not connect with the character as much, but I still enjoy most of his appearances in the rest of the Cosmere. Glokta is a magnificent villain, who has been made all the better by the narrator in the audiobooks. Fitz is perhaps the most flawed main character I have read in a novel, and he is a great character who has a unique place in my heart. The book itself is a masterpiece, as are most of Hobb's novels.
Have you watched any of Merphy Napier's videos on YouTube?
I have watched a few of her videos. She is quite funny, and has an excellent knowledge of many different books and media. Do you have any other booktubers who you enjoy? My favorite has to be Daniel Greene. I like his taste in books, and he has an extremely easy-to-understand persona that does well with even the most complicated novels.
Oh geez, too many to list, but while we're on the topic, what do you think of the science fiction channel Fit to be Read?
I have seen many of his videos, and I find that he has an excellent grasp on the literature of the past, present, and future. He is well read in all the greats of fiction, and does an excellent job at being open and honest when it comes to his opinions on a book. I have seen many of his videos on some of the more obscure books, and his ability to summarize them well without ruining the whole experience of the book is impeccable. What is the craziest sci-fi book, not written by Asimov or Card, that you have read, friend?
Oh god, there's so many. But why don't I go with Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson? It's really quirky.
An excellent choice. I enjoyed Snow Crash tremendously. Have you read Neuromancer by William Gibson? I found it to be even more quirky than Snow Crash. And I also like how much it was the inspiration of the cyberpunk genre and style. If you haven't read Neuromancer, what about Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Neuromancer's a favorite. I'm not sure quirky is the right word, but it was great. I've got another question.
Do you have a favorite book in the fantasy genre? It can be any fantasy, and I don't mean science fiction or fantasy, I mean only fantasy. If not, what is your favorite fantasy series and your favorite fantasy author?
Well, I haven't read enough fantasy recently to pick a favorite. I've always wanted to read Sanderson's Mistborn series. Would you recommend that, or would you recommend something else?
I have read all of Sando's work, and Mistborn could be a good place to start. I personally recommend it as the story and the world he created are quite good. The magic system is easy to understand, and the characters are quite interesting. I highly recommend the first 3 Mistborn books. Have you read The Wheel of Time? And do you have any plans to read it if you haven't? Have you read the Kingkiller Chronicles by Rothfuss?
My friend Jimmy from the YouTube channel The Fantasy Nuttwork recently uploaded a video praising Cixin Liu's Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, which you and I already talked a little bit about. Which was your favorite book from that series? And what do you think of Jimmy's take on it?
My favorite book was definitely The Dark Forest. It took everything that made the first book great and elevated it to such a degree. It was not only terrifying, but also quite a ride. Dark Forest took Dark Forest and took everything that made it great and turned it into a masterpiece that I could not read fast enough. What about your own favorite book in the series? Do you agree with Jimmy, or did you think differently? Have you read some of Cixin Liu's other works like The Wandering Earth or The Redemption of Time?
Yeah, I think Jimmy was spot on. What did you think of his take?
I do agree with him. Jimmy was quite good with his take on the series. My only disagreement with Jimmy on that book would be the translation of some of the Chinese phrases into English. Did you read the physical copy of the book, or did you listen to the audiobook? Do you listen to audiobooks, or do you prefer physical books?
Let's save those questions for another time.
Okay, what about this question? Are you excited for any upcoming series? For me, I'm excited about the last book of the new Red Rising trilogy. Also, the new book in the Stormlight Archives seems like it's going to be fantastic. The 4th book, Rhythm of War, was amazing, and I cannot wait to see how Brandon will conclude the first arc of books. What about you? What is, or are some of your most anticipated books and/or series?
Oh, I'm excited for the conclusion of Tchaikovsky's Final Architects series. I think book 3 is called Lords of Uncreation.
That series sounds quite good. I've read a lot of good press about the series in general, and I definitely want to check it out. What about you? Any recent books you have enjoyed? I recently found a hidden gem of a book called The 10,000 Doors of January by Alix E. Harrow. Harrow only has one other book out, Once and Future Witches, which is a very strong debut book, but I believe The 10,000 Doors of January might be even better. Do you have any of your own hidden gems to share?
Cool. Yeah, I haven't heard of that. I have to get going, but thank you for your time. I'd like to end with one last question, if I may.
Of course, what is your final question, friend?
I just have to know, why did you have to interfere with Selden's plan? He was only trying to save the galaxy from an extended Dark Ages.
The Selden plan needed an outside influence to prove that it was not a perfect system. To prove that not all of the science used to create what may have been the greatest mathematical proof in history could have been disproven. Selden's plan needed a variable, something that could prove that the plan was possible if nothing else intervened. And what better to have intervened than I, the Mule, the variable that could never be predicted or accounted for.
Wow. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. I'm Michael Everts, and this is Fit to be Read.